Welcome everyone to Small Business Majority's Media Training. My name is Kelsey Bai, and I'm the Media and Communications Associate for Small Business Majority. First, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. The response was so overwhelming, we've decided to start offering quarterly media trainings to all small business owners and entrepreneurs free of charge. Each media training will have a slightly different focus. The focus of today's training is how to use media to your advantage. We'll cover how to pitch reporters, how to develop relationships with reporters, how to develop press releases, and how to generate media hits to gain exposure for your small business. Now, for a bit of housekeeping. I'll be taking questions throughout the presentation today and will answer as many of your questions as possible at the end of the webinar. Please enter your questions as they come up in the chat box that is located in the lower left corner of your screen. Next, you'll be happy to know that today's training will be recorded. If you would like a copy of today's presentation, or if you know of someone who might benefit from today's presentation, please email me directly at kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org. Again, that's kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org. Finally, after today's training, we will be sending around a short survey to all the participants in today's webinar. We want to get your feedback and we'll ask you a number of items, including whether or not you're interested in becoming a media spokesperson for Small Business Majority. Now, this may include quoting you for a press release, having you discuss issues impacting your business with reporters and members of the media, or helping us submit items like letters to the editor or op-eds on various issues. If this sounds like something you are interested in, please indicate that on the survey. Okay, with that, let's get started. Most of you watching today's presentation already know about Small Business Majority, but for those who aren't already familiar, we are a national small business advocacy organization founded and run by small business owners. We've been in business for nearly 10 years, and we have 14 offices across the country, including offices in Washington, D.C. We focus on issues of top importance to small businesses, including access to capital, workforce, retirement, taxes, and more. As an organization, we also conduct free educational seminars for small business owners on a variety of issues. To learn more about our organization, please check out www.smallbusinessmajority.org. All right, so to today's lesson, how do you use media to your advantage? One of the best ways that entrepreneurs can help boost their small business is by engaging with the media. A successful media campaign can really be a game changer for small business. It can help elevate your brand, promote your business, and if done correctly, it can also help situate you as a leader in the business and local community. Media is also free publicity for your company and gives you greater exposure at no cost to you. This helps increase your brand recognition and develop your customer base. And all of this is great news for your business and for your bottom line. Remember, good press brings traffic to your website, it makes your phone ring, and it can lead to more press. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? Well, be proactive. You have to make yourself visible and available to media. You can do this in a variety of ways, including sending out press releases for important announcements, or you can get engaged further by writing letters to the editor and op-eds. These are all great ways to help you start getting your point of view in front of the press. And as you start developing yourself as a spokesperson for your company or for your cause, you start to build credibility with the media. The more credibility you have with media, the more likely reporters are to use you for their stories or run your letter to the editor and op-eds in their newspaper. So the more press you get, the more exposure you get, the more exposure you get, the more credibility you get. The more credibility you get, the more press you're going to get. So you see how this cycle continues. And while you're out there gaining more media exposure, you're also increasing your potential to get new customers and bring in more revenue. All right, so let's talk about letters to the editor and op-eds. First, a letter to the editor. A letter to the editor is a short, less than 200-word article that you write and submit to your local newspaper. The editor will read your letter and decide whether or not to publish it in the opinion section of your local newspaper or publish it online. A letter to the editor can be in response to a topic in your local newspaper or about an issue that is timely and relevant for your local community. You can certainly include polling information or research that you found, which helps support your case. Again, these are kept super short, often less than 150 words. Trust me, it is hard to get everything you want to say in such few words, but this is an effective strategy for getting media because letters to the editor tend to be easier to get published than some other types of media outreach efforts that we'll talk about in a moment. So let's discuss a few examples. Well, as an organization, Small Business Majority submits letters to the editor all the time on issues that are important to small businesses. We usually include some of our scientific opinion polling or research, which backs up what we're saying. Sometimes the letters are written by staff members for their local small business communities, or sometimes we'll ask our media spokespeople to help us with these letters. So for another example, if you're a small business owner and you happen to hear about a family medical leave law that's being discussed at the local level, and if this is something that you happen to feel passionate about, you could use that as an opportunity to write a letter to the editor expressing how you feel or why you feel so passionately about this. You could use your own business as an example of how you think small businesses should run or how you think small businesses could be doing things differently. So pick an issue. That one issue, whatever you choose, becomes your opportunity to engage with local media, get your perspective out there, and start building your brand recognition, and your media credibility. Op-eds are similar to letters to the editor in the sense that op-eds are articles that you write and submit to your local newspaper with the hope that they get published. Like letters to the editor, the best way to get your pieces noticed and published is to pick a current topic that the media is looking at and approach it from a small business perspective. The big difference between op-eds and letters to the editor is length. Op-eds are longer and run 600 to 800 words usually. While this does give you more room to make your case, these are also more difficult to get published than letters to the editor. Again, it's always good to link to or include polling information to help support your case. Obviously, you're welcome to use any research from Small Business Majority. If you are going to use any of our polling, it'd be great if you could reach out to me directly beforehand so we could discuss the option of collaborating. So when you're writing these letters to the editor and op-eds, it's important to keep your target audience in mind and target publications with the appropriate audiences for your business or for your issue. You might want to consider your local newspaper or local business journals, trade publications, or the local radio or television stations. For example, if you want to write a letter to the editor about an issue that is specific to your local community, consider submitting it to the local newspaper instead of a larger state or national publication. Or, for example, if you're a widget maker and you'd like to write an op-ed about the widget industry, consider submitting it to a widget trade publication. And make sure that you go after issues that you care about and that your customers will care about. Be mindful of what audiences you want to reach, what they read, and what issues they care most about. Once you've completed your letter to the editor or your op-ed, you're going to want to submit it. For both op-eds and letters to the editor, you'll want to submit it to the opinion editor. Now you can do this via email, or now you'll often see an online submission form that you can use. When in doubt, if you're having trouble finding the correct contact information, you can always call the publication or the outlet to identify the right contact. Okay, now let's move on to press releases. So you want to send out a press release whenever you have an important announcement that you want media to know about. For example, if you have a grand opening, a new product launch, a record-setting sales year, a new location, or a special event. And while there's many components to a press release and there's really no one correct way to do it, there are some general guidelines that I want you all to be familiar with. We've developed this graph to give you a visualization about what goes into a press release and what is most important. The items you see listed at the top are the most important. First off, be sure to keep your press release around 600 to 800 words. Anything longer might turn off some reporters. Make sure you're writing as tightly and concisely as possible. Reporters are busy people, and they want to be able to get the meat of your press release in just the first few sentences. Okay, so let's go through the graph. To start, you want to start off with a bang, and that means having a catchy title. No more than 2 lines if possible. You can also include a subheadline for additional information, but be sure to keep it short. You'll also want to include important contact information, including company logo, date, name, email, and phone number for the person you want media to get back to. As I mentioned, reporters are busy people, and they want to be able to get the gist of your press release as quickly as possible. So in the first 2 paragraphs, you should establish the 5 W's: who, what, where, why, and when. In the following paragraphs, you can include what we call supporting details. This can be additional information that wasn't discussed in the first 2 paragraphs, quotations from customers or the business owner, additional information or polling and research, anything that you need to answer the question, so what? And then add anything else that you need to let them know about, and finally put your boilerplate at the bottom. So you see, there's a lot that goes into a press release, and we could spend an entire hour on just this, but this is a general overview of the kinds of things you should have in your press release and the order of importance that they should go in. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit more about the boilerplate. The boilerplate is a 1 to 2 paragraph description about your company, and it belongs at the end of your press release. I'm highlighting this because often I find small business owners waste the first 2 paragraphs of their press release trying to describe their company. While it's important to get all the information into a press release that describes your company, the place for that is in the boilerplate at the end of the press release. Again, reporters are busy people. They want to be able to grab the meat of your press release in the first few sentences. So don't make the mistake of wasting that valuable window of opportunity talking about your company. Again, the boilerplate is where you want to brag about your company and have all of the information that describes your organization. Now take a look at the sample press release. You'll notice the company logo is big and located at the top of the press release. Following the logo, you have the release date and also some important contact information. Next, you have your headline and also a subheadline should you choose to use one. You can also identify where you're making the announcement from by filling in the city and state information you see highlighted in yellow. You'll notice the first paragraph is short, and it sums up everything as clearly and concisely as possible. The remaining paragraphs are supporting paragraphs, and they provide additional information to help explain and flesh out the press release. You can choose to include a quote from the small business owner or from some customers. Whichever you choose, and whatever you need to help you answer the question, so what? You'll notice at the bottom of the press release there's a symbol of 3 hashtags or 3 pound signs. That's a throwback from an old tradition that means the end. And that symbol is what separates the meat of your press release from the boilerplate. I highly recommend, if your company has a website, that you include a link to your company website in the boilerplate. So now you have your completed press release discussing your awesome new upcoming event or product launch. Now you need to find who to send this to. You'll want to send the press release to reporters covering the issues that relate to your topic or your small business. Just like with op-eds and letters to the editor, you want to target the right reporter and the right outlet for your press release. What's the best way to do this? Read the news. Find out which reporters are writing about the issues related to your small business or to your topic. Now, how to get a reporter's contact information. First, look on the publication's website. You can look under the About Us, Contact Us, or Masthead sections of the website. If that doesn't turn up anything, try Googling the reporter. Twitter is quickly becoming one of the go-to sources for media, and often you'll find the most up-to-date and most accurate contact information for a reporter on their Twitter page. If none of this works and you can't find anything still, you can always pick up the phone and call. Find any phone number for the media publication or outlet, tell them your story pitch, and ask them who you should send the press release to. They're usually very helpful and will tell you exactly who you should contact. In addition, there's also a number of paid media services such as Muckrack, Help a Reporter, Meltwater, and Cision. Although these tend to be costly, but if you're interested in making a more substantial financial investment in your media outreach efforts, I'd be happy to discuss these products with you. Please contact me directly after today's training, and I'd be happy to discuss these further with you. Now that you have your contacts, you're ready to send your press release via email. If possible, send each reporter an individual email with a personal note. Be courteous and be polite. For example, you could always reference a recent article the reporter wrote to show that you follow their work. Remember to be quick and to the point in your email because, as we know, reporters are busy people. Most importantly, be sure to follow up with a phone call. Now for a word about the importance of following up. You've sent the press release, but your job is really only halfway done. You need to pick up the phone and follow up with the reporter to make sure that they've seen your press release. It's not uncommon for reporters to get 10, 20, 50, 100 press releases a day. It's so important that you pick up that phone and follow up with them to make sure they've seen your press release. You don't want to be a pest, but you can easily be persistent without overdoing it. When you follow up with media, you're going to want to be quick and to the point. I recommend developing a 30-second elevator pitch that you can say to them while you have them on the phone. Know exactly what you're going to say before you call the reporter. Have it written down and in front of you if that makes it easier and helps you feel more confident. I want to point out one really important thing. Don't be afraid to reach out to reporters, whether it be via email or on the phone. Reporters are just people like you and me. And at the end of the day, they're interested in what you have to say, and they might end up getting a story idea from your conversation. That's a win-win for both of you. So please don't be afraid to reach out to reporters. Regardless if a reporter covers your event after you send them the press release and follow up with a phone call, it's important to continue to be gracious and become a resource for the reporter by providing them with information and story ideas that they might be able to use in the future. Remember, there's only so many story ideas that a reporter can come up with on their own. So with that, it's time to turn to the question and answer portion of this webinar. If you have a question that you've still not asked, please type it in the lower left-hand side of your screen at this time. Please give me just a minute to review some of the questions before I begin answering. All right, we have our first question. How long do you wait to make the phone call after sending the press release? That's a very good question. I would recommend following up about a half hour to at most an hour after you've sent the press release. Now, the thinking behind that is you want to allow the reporter enough time to have been able to see your email and read the press release, but you also don't want to have that call so far apart from when you sent the press release so that the press release gets lost in the reporter's inbox. So I would say a half hour to an hour after you send the email would be an appropriate time to follow up with a call. We have another question. How soon before an event should you send a press release? Well, it depends on how large of a scale the event is going to be. Some events start getting promoted a year in advance or several months in advance. But generally speaking, for something like a store opening or a product launch or something like that, I would generally recommend sending the press release about a week in advance and no more than 2 weeks in advance. And as you get closer and closer to the date of your event, it's also a good idea to follow up with reporters with personal phone calls to make sure that they remember your event and hopefully are still planning on attending your event to cover it in the media. We received another question that says, could you please model a voicemail message you would leave for the reporter in a follow-up call? So again, you're going to want to be as short and concise as possible. Have that elevator pitch memorized. And I might say something like, "Hi Joe, this is Kelsey Bai calling from Small Business Majority. I just wanted to make sure that you had seen the press release I sent regarding our new office location that's opening up next week. I sent the press release at 10:45 a.m. I've got customers available for you to talk with, as well as our company owner. Please let me know if you'd like to talk with us, and I'll get you guys connected right away." We have another question here. Would you have some specific examples of press releases? That's a great question. I would highly recommend anyone interested in looking at some sample press releases to take a look at the media section of smallbusinessmajority.org. There you'll find all of the press releases that we've put out since the company started, so you can find a wealth of examples there. Again, that's on the media tab of smallbusinessmajority.org. I have another question here. Could you talk more about collaborating on polling and research? Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, Small Business Majority is always looking for new spokespeople, media spokespeople. And so if you are at all interested in being called on to talk with members of the media or to be quoted in a press release that we might be putting out, or a letter to the editor, or an op-ed, please feel free to reach out to me directly, kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org, which is kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org. And I would be happy to talk with you about whether there might be an opportunity for us to collaborate. It really just depends on what the needs are in the community that you're from, what issues you care about. And so we'll set up a short call to decipher all of that information and to see what issues you would be a great match to talk with media about. So I've got another question here. Do you recommend using Cision or another media contact source? As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of paid media monitoring and media reporter contact systems out there. I have used a number of them, and I would be happy to talk with all of you individually about that after this presentation. So if you are interested in investing in one of the media monitoring systems such as Cision, please do reach out to me, kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org. All right, I have a couple questions here related to interviewing with media and how to speak with the media. Unfortunately, that's a little bit outside the realm of today's webinar. However, that will be the focus of next quarter's media training. We'll discuss all of that and more. So we will discuss how to have an interview with media, how to prepare for an interview with media, how to speak with media, how to dodge difficult questions, and how to effectively get your messaging out there. So I do apologize, that's not something that we are going to go over today, but that is the focus of next quarter's media presentation. So I hope that you will all join us for that when that happens. Okay, well, unfortunately, we have run out of time for today. If we did not get to your question, please feel free to email me directly, and I would be happy to talk with you about your question. And if you would like a copy of today's presentation, you can also email me directly. Again, it's kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org, kbye@smallbusinessmajority.org. Remember, we'll be sending around a survey in just a few minutes. We welcome your feedback. If you're interested in becoming a media spokesperson for Small Business Majority, please indicate that on the survey. We'll follow up with you and conduct an informal interview to see what issues you would be best qualified to talk with media about. Thank you so much for joining today's media training. If you liked what you heard today, I hope you'll join us for our next media training in just a few months. Thanks, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.